former president, Jack Heath, on this Monday morning. J-Dog on the boards in our capital region. And after the weather we saw with some of those tornadoes, oh my goodness, God help some of those folks. Those were incredible storms and just strange, just terrible stuff. I can't complain that we're going into Memorial Day weekend with some clouds and cooler weather. Can't complain, but whatever you're doing, hopefully you had a good weekend. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Download our Pulse app, by the way. We have everything on there for you. Local news, regional news, national news, weather stuff, on-demand stuff. Everything with us is the Pulse of an H. And our poll question this morning, and that's on X at the Pulse of an H. Do you think the White House or President Trump can negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia? They're moments away, White House, to address this. So we are going to ask you if you think President Trump can negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia. I have my doubts, mainly because of the Russian piece of this, but we'll see. But that question's up on the Pulse, and our own White House correspondent, John Decker, on this Monday morning is at the White House. And Caroline Levitt from New Hampshire, is the press secretary, going to be moments away from, they're going to have a press conference. So John's going to keep us posted that the president's going to talk about this. Somehow behind the scenes, the heat has been turned up. So we'll talk about that. Also, over the weekend, Brad Card is going to be coming on in a little bit with an update. You might have heard on Friday, a few Republicans were holdouts on that key committee to continue or forward to the House for a vote, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, the tax and spending bill, or Big Beautiful Bill, I guess they call it, the tax bill, which would have key areas in there. The goal from Republican leadership in Congress is to get this delivered to the president's desk by July 4th. And there were 3 or 4, I think, on Friday who held things up. But over the weekend, this weekend, you may have missed this, they got together again and somehow appeased those differences with the holdouts. And it's going to move, I believe, this week. And Brad Card will give us an update in a little bit. All right, a lot going on elsewhere. We're filling in on some of the economic stuff. Doug Tengden will be on this morning. A lot of people are scratching their heads still. Even if there's a sigh or a temporary sigh of relief on the tariff stuff, people are still trying to figure out what's going on. Are we entering a slowdown, a reset in the economy? What's going on with real estate? We'll check in with Doug Tengden in a little bit. Also, Neil Vec will be checking in this morning. We've got a packed show for you. J-Dog, before I get back to some of the heavy-duty stuff, you were busy pretty much all weekend. We had stuff going on through the weekend, different remotes. You didn't get much break, huh? All right. I asked you about those Toronto fans last night. 6-1 Panthers going on to the Eastern Conference Finals, breaking the hearts of Toronto Maple Leafs fans once again. Brad Marchand this time in some red and white. You weren't as surprised last night, even with the crowd in Toronto in and outside the arena. Wow, a lot of people bummed out there. So just in a couple of interesting things before we get back to some of the other news talk coming out of the weekend. This story, it's interesting because on Friday or Saturday, yours truly posted on the show page, which I primarily used to promote the show. Why? And we had, if you recall, we had U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen. Senator Shaheen was a live guest on my show on Friday morning. And we had a lengthy interview going into Law Enforcement Memorial Day on Friday and some other stuff. And I asked her about looking back, any regrets on supporting Joe Biden, because you were one of his biggest supporters when he was running again for president. And the New Hampshire presidential primary was snatched away. And he had told the president, Joe Biden, had told Jeanne Shaheen, don't worry about your primary. And next thing you know, it was gone. And the Democrats here, the powers to be, blamed the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, for changing the calendar or taking New Hampshire out. But it turns out it was the Biden White House. He didn't want to do it again. He didn't do too well here last time. If you remember, coming in, I believe it was it fifth behind Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar. So she said, yes, she actually does, in hindsight, regret her support basically after listening to the interview from Friday. And my point was going before the news of this cancer diagnosis, advanced prostate cancer, which you don't wish on anyone. And I do hope and wish Joe Biden in particular recovery and that he's not, doesn't have to go through much, I guess discomfort here. But I hope he's okay. But an aggressive form. I'm going to come back to that. But I was questioning before this news this weekend about all the cancer stuff. Why all the news of Joe Biden in the news recently? I'm talking the last few weeks, the book stuff, the interviews. He was out there and all this finger pointing about people on his mental and physical decline. Why didn't they say something? And all the media rewriting this, trying to just cover themselves and say they knew, but they didn't say anything. They knew. Why didn't they speak up? I guess the question, the strange thing about this, so not strange, but a sad news, and I mean it is sad, and I really do hope and wish the former president wellness on the prostate diagnosis. Anyone, a lot of people listening, the guys out there or spouses who love, the men in their life know that as you get older, this is a routine part of your physical, whether it's blood work or checking for elevated PSAs, elevated PSAs. Most guys out there know as you get older, it's a real concern. And you got to keep an eye on it. And they do. They keep an eye on it. They made a lot of progress on this. I've had J-Dog, you and I actually know J-Dog, you and I actually have 2 or 3 broadcast colleagues. I'm not going to say their names for privacy and respect who've gone through different levels of diagnosis with prostate. I have probably 3 to 5 friends in the last 2 to 3, 4 years that have gone through some degree of diagnosis with prostate. And the good news is there's some options available. And I'm not trying to play a doctor on my own show, but some people can even treat this and do nothing because it's a very slow moving cancer as you get older. Some people can live with it and something else will get them in the end, as some doctors will say. So it's not the prostate. And if it's advanced like this one is, and I'll come back to the whole Gleason reading and a 9 reading and how advanced this is and whether or not it metastasized, you can get surgery. You can get surgery or you can get chemo or both sometimes. The only question that's a little strange, and some of the doctors and people out there and myself and some people are, and I'm not a doctor, but they're saying this, is it's so far advanced. And unlike someone who might not have been to a doctor for the last couple of years to get blood work or test, where they could have missed this, and it moves slowly in older people, it's raising the question this morning, how long have the Bidens or the people around them or the doctors, how long have they known that he had prostate? Because this doesn't just come out of thin air this quick, this fast, this advanced. That's what a lot of people are saying. So hopefully it responds well to treatment. And hopefully it's that kind, this node, but it usually is something that they've known about or you would know about. One doctor said, if you haven't been to the doctor in 5 years, it's understandable you could get this advanced diagnosis. But if you've been regularly checked, and if you remember, and I think President Trump just had a checkup, presidents of the United States regularly have to undergo, exams, and blood work is certainly a standard part of that exam, especially with an 80-year-old or 81-year-old. And it's just kind of weird that the timing that just seems like, and there may be some, privacy is privacy, maybe that people felt, but you wonder with the last few weeks of people talking about the cognitive and mental decline of Joe Biden, and it was getting worse. And then he's being blamed for running again or staying in too long. And the Democrats are blaming him and the Bidens. That's why Harris lost. I don't think that's it at all. I think she was given the nomination. CNN said she was enshrined with the nomination. She raised $1 billion. She lost because she was a terrible candidate. She couldn't even articulate what she wanted to do if elected president. She just wanted to tell everyone how bad Trump was at his rallies and then her events. Couldn't say how she was different than the past administration. Couldn't say what she wanted to do if elected. But she was not a good candidate. But I guess the point is to have this advanced prostate, and a lot of us know this from friends of ours who have gone through treatment. And when you have a buddy going through it, you get educated because he or she, the family friends will tell you what they're going through, whether they have surgery or chemo or neither. I talked to a buddy this morning who was talking about a friend of his who's battling prostate, and it was a fascinating doctor in the Pennsylvania area who's advising this person how to kind of manage it and test it without surgery or chemo. But if you need it, there is those options, and it's fairly treatable. That's the good news with prostate. It's fairly treatable. And some people, when they get older, they'll tell you just to monitor it and kind of you'll probably go with it, kind of thing. But again, this is the only thing I don't that when you're president, and it wasn't that long ago, Joe Biden was still president, talking about before the end of the year or before, after November, but it was the end of the year. He was getting, medical, getting checkups, especially when you're president. They check your health pretty regularly, unlike some of us intend to. Maybe it's been a while since they've been to the doctor, and then all of a sudden you get an elevated reading. All right, we'll take a break there. We'll talk about the Republicans in the House meeting over the weekend to get the big, beautiful bill done. Caroline Levitt giving a briefing as we speak. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker's there. We're going to get an update in the 10 o'clock hour. Anna Brown on the State House stuff. A lot to update you on, believe it or not, before we go into Memorial Day weekend. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a few. All right. So all these stories right now, Caroline Levitt, White House press secretary from New Hampshire, of course, briefing right now. Our own White House correspondent John Decker is there. I guess the big thing, two big things come out of the weekend is you may not be paying attention to it, but Brad Card has been for weeks now, several days. The president calls it, refers to it as the big, beautiful bill. But a lot of people trying to figure out, and it's a big bill on the tax side and spending. We have a big debt, as you know, 35, 36 trillion and in debt. Some of the key Republicans, because they can't even afford maybe one not to vote for this before it passes, goes to the House on Friday. Four of them walked, or three or four of them walked on it with concerns in the bill. And then over the weekend, well, Brad Card's going to update us, our own political analyst and all-star. But the press conference right now is on the Ukraine and the war between Russia and the Ukraine and some urgent call for peace talks. We'll get an update on that as well. But Brad Card, and of course, co-host with yours truly in Contact Politics. And I urge you to check out the current edition up. John McLaughlin or McLaughlin, how do you pronounce his last name, Brad? Yep. President Trump's top leading pollster, pretty much going back to 2016 to the current day. It's a fascinating discussion with John. Brad got him on. Fascinating discussion on issues as we look to the midterms. That's contact politics. Brad Carr, Jack Heath, and John McLaughlin. Brad, what's going on in this big, beautiful bill? What's the latest? Right. But and well, Brad, there's a lot of moving pieces here now. Just because sometimes Congress, big bills, legislation, it goes right over people's heads. But correct me if I'm wrong, because we had a previous guest, or it might have been John McLaughlin, who was talking about this, Brad, because he thought the tax bill, if it passes, would be a key midterm issue for Democrats and Republicans. But people might forget the current Trump tax cuts of the last administration pretty much have sunset, correct? Okay. So that's a big deal. Or Joe Q and Mary Q Public are going to have to pay attention to their own tax rates. And then, of course, there's all a bunch of new stuff in there. And the president wants this, as he calls it, a big, beautiful bill by July 4th. But he almost can't speak up too much because if he upsets a couple members, nothing gets passed. Mhm. Well, right. What about if it gets to the Senate? Is it an easier slog there for Republicans? Interesting. Yeah. All right, Brad. I guess the other big thing this morning, we're going to get an update from our own White House correspondent, John Decker, in just a moment. But I guess there's something popping there in terms of the president urgently more wanting to try and get a peace, some kind of an agreement hammered out. I don't know. We're going to get an update because I don't know what the latest coming out of the weekend. I know that things have not been looking real optimistic for something to happen. I'll tell you. Oh, I didn't know that. That was a consequence. But I'll tell you, Brad, I wasn't stunned to see the Panthers win, but I was stunned to see it be a 6-1 game and all those fans outside the arena and inside in Toronto. You just had to feel you kind of have to have some empathy. And there's Brad Marchand once again. Brad Marchand. There's Brad. There's Marshy once again. Game 7 over the Maple Leafs. Just tell me who's going to be the coach of the Bruins. Thank you, Brad. Hey, Scotty Scheffler, big win in the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow in North Carolina. Boy, what a meltdown! What a meltdown for John Rahm. Oh my goodness, he had it. When they made the turn, it was about even, and what a meltdown! Wow, he just in the last four, it wasn't any water he couldn't find. J Dog. Oh my goodness, he just what a meltdown. And Keegan Bradley locally, I think he ended up 4 under, but Adam ran away. I mean, Scotty Scheffler ran away with it. J Dog in the end, and for I had said before last week it. He's just so emotionless out there. He's like a zombie in a computer. He gets in such a calm zone, which is one reason why he's so darn good. He's he's been a champion since he was a kid. I mean, if you look at the golf club in New England in Stratham, New Hampshire, owned by Craig Benson, former governor, he had mentioned that he hosted that PGA. What do they call it, J Dog? When the younger players play in a PGA event, it was the amateur. And he said, this kid, Scotty Scheffler, is unbelievable. And he won the tournament there in Stratham at Golf Club in New England. But it was nice to see at the end kind of him slam dunk his hat to the green. But I thought the nicest part was him and his wife and his son. I think his name is Bennett. Because sometimes the players, they do the old hug as they should, and it's emotional. It's a drain. And see their family, off the green there, and his coaches and his in-laws and his family, his parents. But he didn't want to put his son down. He took him right into the scoring because his son wanted to be with him. I thought it was so cute. He brought him right into the scoring trailer or room for his card, so that was cool. But Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the pulse of an H. I want to take one moment. You've heard just last week, Adam Van was on with Alpine Gold. And, I just have to tell you, truth be told, I've never been like a huge, I like William Devane, by the way. All the gold ads over the years, the actor, remember, he's in his nice log home, like out west or in the Midwest or Wyoming, Montana, talking about a crazy economy, buy gold, buy silver, William Devane. I just watched the Marathon Man the other night, by the way, with Dustin Hoffman. But Adam's been on talking. We've been getting to know the folks at Alpine. But I have to tell you, this weekend, I was reading about a Moody's report. We're going to hear from Doug Tangton in a little bit. I just mentioned our debt in this country, almost $36 trillion in debt. You think of the US dollar, you think of inflation, you wonder what's worth anything. And I've always been old school. I'm not trying to be a financial advisor here, but I like to touch something. I'm not a big stock person. I have friends that are huge stock people. They believe in their stock market portfolio. And remember the last few weeks with everyone talking about the trade stuff and tariffs, your 401ks, they were swinging like a yo-yo, up, down, up. Your 401, I mean, the market was down, down. Your 401k was, don't look at it today. If you're looking at retirement soon, your 401ks in the basement, and then it would come up again. And the yo-yo's a stock market. I'm not a big prolific stock person. I never have been. I love real estate. I don't know. It's something about real estate. You can touch it, you can understand it. You worry, different markets up, different markets down, interest rates up, interest rates down. But the thing about gold, and I've gotten to really be educated from Adam Van with Alpine Gold, is the thing about gold is it's real. It's thousands of years old and it doesn't lose value. And if you're looking at just a way to hedge any of this craziness, these ups and downs, the uncertainty, just 401k, you just get some gold. But the thing I like about these guys, and they're a great sponsor of my show, is, and I did this the other day on the show last Tuesday, you can open a membership. And sometimes when you do these things, it's so invasive, takes so long. This is one of the easier, less stressful memberships to join. You don't have to put any money into it. There's no monthly minimum. I don't want to bring up the word crypto, but that's more complicated and crazy. This is gold. It makes sense. And silver. You can open a membership or you can just buy. So go to the alpinegold.com. Go to alpinegold.com, alpinegold.com. Open a membership or just shop. It says right on there, right on the website. I joined it the other day, Tuesday. Shop precious metals. You can buy some gold. The nice thing about Alpine Gold, you don't have to buy a lot. They have their lease program, gold backs, and buy just a little, like $50 a month worth of gold. Just it'll add up in your account, or you can buy. Just you want to buy some silver, $300 worth. They're a great group. They're headquartered in Utah. Solid ratings, good people. I've gotten to know them, so I highly recommend them. Go to alpinegold.com, alpinegold.com. Here's the nice thing. They've done this for us, here for you. You can buy some gold or silver, open an account, and at checkout, just put the pulse, just the word pulse. At checkout, you get free shipping. Pulse. And if you want to open a membership, just mention Jack Radio or Pulse how'd you hear about us? That's the only field they ask. How'd you hear about us? You can say Jack on the radio or Jack Pulse. When you check out, if you buy anything, go to alpinegold.com. Just put the word Pulse at checkout. You get free shipping. Pulse. All right. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play get again the Pulse of an H. Our poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of an H. We'll make it easy for you. Everything's the Pulse. It's real easy. Do you think President Trump can negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia? We're asking you straight up because that's the subject of a press conference right now. Our own White House correspondent John Decker on deck, or will be if he gets through this. And Neil Levesque will be checking in as well. Back in a moment. All right, welcome back. And just real quickly, we'll track this with our weather this week, looking into Memorial Day weekend. Not to get ahead of ourselves on a Monday, and it's nothing compared to what the folks in I think it was Missouri, Kentucky, what some of those tornadoes. You see those tornadoes, the storms, the devastation. So I can't complain if we get a little bit of cooler weather and rain, but normally you think of a nor'easter type weather and the winter, but we could be looking at a sort of a Thursday, Friday, kind of some windy, cooler, wet stuff coming in towards the end of the week. Hopefully things dry out by Sunday to give you a little bit of time on Monday or Sunday for Memorial Day. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the pulse of NH. Neil Levesque, Institute of Politics, Executive Director, St. Anselm College. Your former student, Caroline Levitt's having a press briefing right now. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, standing by, and President Trump looking at trying to step in quickly here and see if he can negotiate some kind of a truce or peace between Russia and the Ukraine, but also plenty to talk about in Washington. And Joe Biden, former president. Neil Levesque, good morning. It, I don't want to get into it. You should be proud. You should be proud because I know. I know. Think of what you were and 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 starting a family. She's got a baby boy. She got her son in there half the time sitting in her office in the White House, and she's juggling. And I mean, Neil, you know what I don't get? I want to come back to this because I want to talk about former President Biden because I wish him the best health wise on this news. But I just think it's interesting, this whole Joe Biden in the news recently. Now, obviously, this is a tough one. But Caroline Levitt, been on my show a lot, a lot in here when she was in between stuff. Great talent. I could see it media wise. Went to your St. Anselm Institute of Politics. And, politics is so divisive and people are just losing. Some people, not all. You know what it is, Neil? I have a weird theory. Give me a little bit of latitude here, buddy. We have time. Do you know how when you're out there driving and you just see some really bad drivers who cut you off for no gain at all? They don't know how to yield at a rotary, or they're just bad drivers. But the good news is, I think you're with me. 8 out of 9, 8 out of 10, or nine. Most people are good. No. Most people are good drivers. Like most people are pretty common sense. They mean well. They want to do good. It's the people who are just lunatics. And I mean it. I see it out there. I think there's a form like that. There's some Portland, Maine politician. She put online this thing about the farmers from West Africa came here. It was the most vitriolic, racist rant. Weird. She's an elected official from Portland, Maine. I'm like, these people have lost their minds. There must be some form of human rabies I don't know about. My point is, when Caroline Levitt was starting out, 27, named by the president. In fact, one of her first interviews, she called in and talked about when President asked her, called her. She was home in Rye, New Hampshire. Do you want to be my press secretary? Of course, she had played a leading role in the campaign, and people don't know, when she was even younger, she was in the first Trump White House. So she ran for Congress here. She was a nominee, lost to Chris Pappas, 27 years old now. And there are some people in New Hampshire, and I'm not going to use their names because they're well known. When they put this crap in their social media, the vitriolic venom and the hatred they say towards Caroline Levitt from New Hampshire, an embarrassment, what an idiot. I mean, I could go on and on and on. They can't stand her because she's the press secretary for Donald Trump, and they just don't like her anyway. And I'm like, where's the local pride? Like, if there was a young Democrat, let's just say my buddy Lucas Meyer, he's on the show every week. Say a Democrat had won. Lucas also coaches at Concord High School lacrosse. And he's on my show as a regular analyst. If he became like, key role in the Democrat administration, or was the press secretary for if Harris had won, do you know how proud we should be that this young guy from Concord, New Hampshire, younger, he's older than Caroline, but younger person from New Hampshire's press secretary for the president of the United States? You're supposed to put politics aside and say, that's cool. She's 27. She's the press secretary of the President of the United States of America. And there's some people that can't even say that's a cool thing. Good for her. Congrats. Where were they at 27, by the way? Probably still trying to figure out, I don't know, how to feed themselves. I mean, uh, her boss. No, her boss. Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. I know. No, but I mean, people have brought up before, like the Red Sox Yankees feud. And, if a young kid from New Hampshire is pitching for the New York Yankees, beating the Red Sox in the World Series, you should still have some degree of local pride, even if you're a huge Red Sox fan. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just, what's that? Well, not the World Series. You know what I'm saying, J Dog? It doesn't matter, J Dog. The point is the point, okay? Rivalries. No, but okay. I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, let's go National League, American League. My point is American League Championship Series or something. Go Yankees, Red Sox. If a kid's pitching from Manchester, New Hampshire, winning for the Yankees against the Red Sox, we should still cheer. I mean, locally, that's not a bad thing. Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, that's interesting. So Joe Biden, I asked Jean Shaheen on Friday. Senator Shaheen was on my show, and I asked her any regrets on the steadfast support for Joe Biden when he was running again, even after the primary was taken away. And she said, "Yeah." On Friday, I got to listen to the tape, but we might actually, J Dog, we may actually redo that interview today a little bit. But the point is, she said, "Yeah, she's not happy with because the primary and him running again, and yep, a lot of these people were the big supporters of Joe Biden, and then now, of course, news about the advanced prostate." So I just asked before the medical news about the prostate this weekend is why is Joe Biden all of a sudden in the last few weeks, everyone's out there on the Democrat side talking in the national media, why they didn't speak up on the physical mental health decline, who was responsible. It's just all of a sudden it was just in the news again. And then boom, coming out of the weekend, we get this news of his medical diagnosis. And I wish him the best, seriously, from a health point of view. But I don't even get that because I don't mean to say anything. I'm older than you, Neil, and you can't not have friends when you get older who are on the guy side who are dealing with some degree of a prostate cancer diagnosis, treatment, whether it's surgery or chemo or both or neither, and getting the test. You can't not get a medical exam today without them taking whether blood work or some other exam for elevated PSAs. It's something that's an automatic for an aging male, absolutely slam dunk automatic part of your test. And as a president and former president, the medical exams were rather rigorous because, I mean, President Trump just went through one recently, physical, and they usually go to Walter Reed. It's a complete physical. And was within the last year, Joe Biden had a complete physical. And doctors are asking the question this morning, they would have caught an elevated PSA back then at a much lower level before it got to 9 on the Gleason scale, which is basically a very high, and hopefully it hasn't, metastasized or advanced, but hopefully it responds to treatment. But as you get older, prostate it slows down. It takes, I mean, prostate cancer, it's very slow as you get older. Some cases, they'll even say, that's not gonna get you. We'll just treat it as we go. Point is, I'm not saying this to be conspiratorial, Neil. I think someone knew over a year ago if he had some degree of signs of elevated PSAs. Just telling you, I don't think that this is just a very advanced diagnosis, and doctors are saying that doesn't add up. Because he was, if you were in check for 5 years, it could easily be this what's what we're watching. But if you had any degree of check-ins at your doctor, this is a pretty routine test. Oh, I actually feel more bad for him now, wondering who's been behind this Puppet Master show. Right. Yeah. Right. 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 Interesting. Yeah, and then they force him out, and it's just. But again, it was so obvious. We didn't need the debate in Atlanta to know there were problems on his health. I mean, they lied. They would have seen it. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how simple. You're right. They just were hoping they could hide it. He'd get reelected, and then we'll deal with health issues after he's elected again. They just thought he would get elected because it wasn't Trump. And then they enshrined Kamala Harris, and don't tell me she didn't have enough support. She had $1 billion. Polls said it was going to be a toss-up, and she was a terrible candidate because she couldn't say what she'd do if elected or how she was different. It's just that Trump was bad. So you're right. The people that are upset right now, you should be upset at yourself if you are in the Democrat side because you kind of got what you deserve. And all right, Neil, thank you. All right, we come back. We're going to check in on the economy side. A lot going on. Doug Tangden, what's going on? Real estate, interest rates, economy, stock market. Back in a moment. All right, Doug Tangton, worldmarketadvisors.com, worldmarketadvisors.com. Before we get to the economy, I heard you talking to J-Dog, Doug. You had some hail over the weekend, weather-wise? All right. All right, what's going on? Is water coming through on this economy, or what's going on? Is it more resilient than we think? Only wait a minute, only here. You go to different parts of the country and real estate has gone to a standstill. No, 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 no. Try and no, there's it's an inventory issue. You're right here, there's less inventory. There's a demand still for people. More people want to come here than housing. Other parts of the country, there's a complete standstill because I don't know, in Florida, you can't sell a home right now in Fort Myers. I don't care if it's 450 grand, it was 800. Good luck right now. Things have come to a standstill. No, no, I think it's just the market got overbuilt and it came to a standstill. And yep. Yeah, interesting. All right, Doug, do you think the Fed will lower rates in June? Really? Really? Yep. All right. As 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 long as Janet Yellen's not in there, I'm okay. Thank you, Doug. Worldmarketadvisors.com. Anna Brown on deck next.